Hi, my name's Gee Charman and welcome to my Back to Basics series. In this episode, I'm going to show you a twist on the classic mince pie. So first of all, I'm going to make my sweet short crust pastry, and in my bowl I've just got some plain flour and then some diced cold butter. Now if you want to be really traditional, you can use half butter and half lard. So what you want to do is just rub the butter into the flour with your fingertips. It's a great little workout. If you shake the bowl, the larger lumps will come and sit on the top, and those are the bits that you need to work on a little bit harder. So now you can see it's a perfect breadcrumb texture. One final little shake, and there's just a couple of bigger bits of butter still on the top, and then that is perfect. Now, if you're making a normal short crust pastry for a savoury pie, you wouldn't add the next bit, which is a little bit of caster sugar. Now, sugar makes pastry tough if you overwork it, and the idea is that you shouldn't overwork pastry in the first place because it develops the gluten in it like you would need a bread or something like that. You want to handle it as little as possible once it's got liquid in. The first rule, I guess, is half fat to flour, and then the next rule is if you use an egg, pastry is much easier to re-roll. So you know all those little scraps that you get once you've stamped out with your cutter? All those bits are much easier to roll if you have an egg in it. So I'm just going to crack this egg into a little bowl. Now I'm all for not creating too much mess in the kitchen, but normally you could just crack the egg in. But here I want to whisk it so it's nicely beaten through so that you get a nice even texture through the pastry. So I'm just going to put the egg in, nearly all of it, leave a last little bit, and then start with the end of a spoon or a fork just to get it going, otherwise your hands get absolutely covered. So now that most of it's in, I'm going to get my hand in. You might need a little bit of cold water to help bring this all together, depending on how large your egg is. Now I think this has got enough moisture. You can see just by squeezing it, it holds together. So I think this doesn't need any more water, and this is perfect. So I'm just going to give it one quick knead, just to make it nice and smooth. Then roll it into a ball, flatten it down. Now this isn't that vital, but it just means it chills quicker, and I'm rather impatient. I'm going to wrap this in cling film and put it in the fridge for about 20 minutes to firm up. So although I like to hold the title of domestic goddess, the one thing I don't make is mincemeat for mince pies and things like that, mainly because I'm not a massive fan of it, but I do like to jazz it up. My family love mince pies, so I try and put a little bit of effort in, but this is good quality shop-bought mincemeat from the supermarket. Now this is where you can really add anything. Our family favourite are some dried cranberries, usually because there's that half a bag in the back of the cupboard. You can also add some dried apricots or dates or prunes or nuts, whatever you've got. And for those who will think that I've made this at home, it just makes it a little bit more realistic. So orange zest goes in, and then it's a case of the booze of your choice. For those of you that have watched the other series, you'll know that amaretto's mine, but brandy is a good one, cognac, whiskey, whatever really. Again, if there's a little bit of a bottle, get it used up. So just a dash in there. And then you just want to mix this up. Now, because the pastry's chilling, this can sit to one side, or you can make this the day before so that everything infuses really well. But really, it's up to you whenever you get round to it. So that's perfect. So that's just jazzed up, shop-bought mincemeat. A bit of a cheat, but it's Christmas and you've got 101 other things to do. This is a shortcut I can sort of justify. So now that the mincemeat's made, I'm going to do a topping for them. Now normally mince pies have the classic pastry on the top, but I always think that's a little bit heavy, so I'm going to do a nut topping to go with it, which is combined with cranberry jelly. So I'm going to get a pan on, a medium heat, and to the pan I'm going to add some skinned hazelnuts. Now I've cheated once more, these are bought from the shop already skinned. So I'm just going to toast these lightly, which brings out a real nutty flavour to them. And I'm going to toast my flaked almonds also. Now nuts burn really quickly, they've got lots of natural oils, so if you leave them in the pan for too long, the oils come out and they burn, so you really need to keep an eye on them. And once they have gone golden brown, tip them out onto a plate because any residual heat in the pan will burn them to a crisp. So these have gone beautifully nutty brown, and if you need a full list of ingredients and the method, just click on the description box. So I'm going to tip these out onto my board carefully as they roll all over the place and trip Grandma up. So I'm just going to tip these out onto my board, and then into the pan I'm just going to pop a little bit of cranberry or redcurrant jelly. You want the smooth stuff without the lumps. So I'm going to put that in my pan and allow that to melt down. The heat can almost come off now because of the residual heat left in the pan. So this is just melting down, and I've just turned the heat off, and I'm going to leave that for 2 seconds while I get chopping. And I'm just going to roughly chop the hazelnuts and the almonds. The almonds are already there, but the hazelnuts are a little bit chunky. You can always do this in a bowl with a rolling pin if you've got some frustration to take out. Right, so those are done. One more just quick through. And then these can go into the redcurrant or cranberry jelly, whichever you've chosen. And that is it. It's so simple, really easy. You can even buy the chopped nuts if you can't be bothered to do any chopping, but this just adds a delicious crunch on top of your mince pies. So I'm going to leave that to cool and get on with rolling my pastry. So I've got my pastry out of the fridge and it's nice and chilled. So I'm going to just flour my work surface very lightly, just a bit of plain flour. Now you don't want to put too much on the surface because you don't want to add too much flour to your pastry as it changes the texture. And a little bit on top. And then it's just a quick roll with a rolling pin to roll it out. Now keep your pastry moving. It can get a little sticky, a little bit more flour is fine, but you don't want it to stick to your work surface. So what you want to do, I've started these off for you already, but you want to get a cutter that's just slightly bigger than the top of your muffin tin. And this is a deep hole muffin tin. If you're my mum, you like the really thin, shallow pastry cases, that's fine also. And you want to cut out a couple. I've got 3 left to do. And then if you are doing traditional pastry tops, I'd cut all your bases out first, then you can re-roll all the scraps together, and then you can cut out your tops. And then you just want to take one of your discs and pop it right on the top. Now the best way I found of doing it is getting it nice and centrally over the top, and then start pushing down very gently, because your fingertips will go through the pastry really easy. Now once it's sort of almost there, and you can notice it's not quite tucked into the corners yet, so you'll get sort of a slopey edge. So what I do is get a little bit of pastry, one of the scraps, dust it in a bit of flour to prevent it from sticking, and then you use that rather than your big cumbersome fingers and your sharp nails if you're a lady, to push into the corners to get it right in there so you get a nice thin pastry and thins out. And then you end up with a perfectly lined pastry tin. So there you have it. They're all beautifully lined, and at this stage it's now time to fill with your mincemeat mixture, or if you were me, apple. So you want to fill them about 3/4 full. Don't go over the top and fill it too high, because then it just bubbles over, and you just want to leave enough room for that lovely nutty topping. And now it's time for the nutty topping. So pop that on top. There's no need to be absolutely neat and tidy and cover the whole lot. Everything sort of finds its own level as it cooks and heats up. And that's it, so simple, but you just pop them into the oven now at about 200 degrees for about 10 to 12 minutes, or until the pastry is beautiful and golden brown. And just a final little bit of icing sugar, and they're ready to eat. Now if you've enjoyed this recipe and want to see more, why not join me for my next episode in my Back to Basics series.